Okay, we are live. How you guys doing?
Doing all right, I guess.
Vabe, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. Um, okay, so we are going to talk about three different law proposals. Um, I think this is kind of how I want to do it from now on, where every week we get about three different proposals, and before we just send them out and vote on them, we'll do a group chat, and in some cases, hopefully, we'll get like I don't know the whole group in kind of like a Senate meeting would happen in Congress or something. It'd be kind of cluttered. You get a lot more talking time if there's less people, but
Yeah.
I think it'd be kind of fun just to do like a weekly meeting with as many people that could join, and then after that initial talk and people get the ideas flowing in their heads, then we send it out to be voted on. So the
Yeah.
first
I think
three.
I think we kind of had a weekly thing going on, but maybe life just happened and we couldn't keep up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I took a couple weeks off of kind of updating everything, and I was just doing a handful of things. But I'm gonna post in the chat the first law that we're gonna talk about, and that's the right to roam. Okay, should people be allowed to trespass onto private property or sorry, private land for recreational activities, hiking, camping, etc.? Yes or no? Um, So yeah, let's just go with we'll start with Dillian. You go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of land is just too much land is private property and is usually used for farming for it to not be allowed. I don't think that in countries where you have so much land, you should be prohibited from accessing most of the land in that country.
Mm, gotcha.
So,
Vape, what do you think?
I don't want people to be on my property without my permission. Same goes for me as well. So if it's a private property and if there is some sort of border, a wall or wire, if anything is there, we shouldn't just go inside and we shouldn't be able to. Because if
Mm-hmm.
can take a gun and just stand in front of someone's house after crossing their boundary and they'll be like, hey, I was just walking. The reason they
Mm.
got caught and now we have no reason to just hold them accountable for their upcoming actions. So
Mm.
it makes sense to just respect that boundary. Doesn't matter how much that land is, but at the same
yeah.
time, rivers, mountains, these things shouldn't be private property under any circumstances.
So, are you talking about the property being having a fence around it, or is it just a massive amount of land that's the property and you're using it as, let's say, a pasture, and you can't really put a fence around it, but it's still your property, and you want to prohibit people from entering?
If it's your property and you have, even if you have boards saying that this is a private property, please don't cross this road or don't go through that place. We should respect that. It's that easy for me because the reasons I just explained. What is the reason, Dylan, you think we should be able to cross that boundary or whatever it is? We should be able to go in someone's private property.
Well, the law just says for recreational purposes, you just want to walk through the property.
So if I
Like,
pick up my gear, what I use for usually climbing and all, if I pick that thing up, I can go anywhere in anyone's private property.
I'm not
Does it?
saying anywhere in anyone's, but here's the thing: if you don't even like bother to put a fence around your property, I don't think this should be like respected as that much as private property in the sense of
I,
don't enter.
See, I agree with you. I almost agree with you. If there is no way to know that this is a private property, Of course,
I
you
mean,
can go inside.
there are telltale signs. Okay, maybe it's like a different crop there, but it's not guarded in any way. I'm saying this because I know of properties like this around me, which I often cross because I don't want to go around them. It's just a longer way.
What if tomorrow they build if they build a wall around that property? You'll have to
Then
go around that.
then I'll go around the wall. But if they don't, I'm gonna go through it properly.
Of course, but they're allowing you. If they, in case they stops you, they are like, hey, there's a board. You can read it. Please don't go through this way again. What will you do in that situation?
Yeah, I'll go around it. But
Exactly.
I
So we
think
don't disagree.
But yeah, we don't disagree. But I think the bigger problem would be in the U.S. because when they discussed this law, I just watched some videos. I didn't do, much of any research. But it's mostly that you can. I guess in the U.S. you're not allowed to even go through these types of properties. You're not real around allowed to roam there. Is that right,
Um,
Carson? Or
I don't know much. I think in the U.S., pretty much if private property is private property, you can't go on it. Now, I do have an example that I witnessed for myself where I went hiking. I was at this place that was designed for hiking. Well, not designed, but I mean it was a state park of sorts. And then we wandered off the trail. And at one point, we realized that we were on the other side of a broken down fence that used to be like a barbed wire fence, but it was almost the whole way it was broken down. And when we got to the end of one part, we realized there was a sign that said no trespassing. And the part that we were hiking through that said no trespassing looked exactly like the rest of it. And so it was just this big mountain of trees. There's no farmland, no houses, and it just happened to be owned. And I think that's the type of thing that people are thinking of when they think that that shouldn't be blocked off from people.
yeah, and I think that like especially in more developed countries, an unreasonable amount of land is devoted to agriculture, and it's like if you block out this land, you're basically I don't know, kind of in a box. You can't really go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, here, not that it matters what other people do, but I'm just going to list a few places that have legalized the right to roam. So Austria, Estonia, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Scotland, Sweden, Switzerland. Um, there's a handful of other ones, but then I'm gonna read Norway's list. So for Norway, it says there are some basic rules that must be followed when camping in Norway. People are allowed to camp at least 150 meters away from the nearest inhabited house or cottage. So if somebody has, and for people like me in the U.S. that don't use meters, that's a little under 500 feet. So if somebody has huge property, they're out like in a forest type area, if you're 500 feet away from a house or cottage, then that area can be like camped in, I guess.
Yeah, it it sounds reasonable.
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
campfires are not allowed in forest areas for a certain time. Tourists are allowed to stay in one spot for up to 2 days. After that, it's necessary to ask specifically ask for permission from the landowner. This rule excludes national parks. Yeah, yeah. I think it's complicated. I think there'd have to be more details than the law that's sent right here. Oh, I didn't realize that. I was reading something, so I didn't realize that Vapehav was gone. Um,
Oh yeah, he is.
but yeah, I would think that it would need to be more specific of a law to vote on. Right now, I would probably say undecided. But the vague idea of should we have some right to roam, I think I lean towards if it's specifically detailed. But I do my wife's answer to this was that if we had huge property that had like a forest and a whole bunch of different things, and we knew what was our property, she said she would want to walk around naked all the time. And if she knew that it was legal for people to camp in our on our land, she would not want to walk around naked. So knowing what's your property and what to be like scared of or worried of, or my example when I talked to Isaac, the guy that wrote this proposal, was what if you did fence off your entire property, but it's a huge area of property, and you had like kids or grandkids, and you knew as long as they stayed in the property lines, they were safe. So you just let them go play by themselves and be reckless. Um, that to force it because of the amount of land, to force it to where people can go on the property, it makes it kind of tricky. You'd at least want to know before you buy large property.
Hmm.
And definitely in a case like Vabe have, where he has all his extra land has like sanctuary cows and stuff like that on it. Like you definitely people shouldn't be able to just hop that fence and go in there. It'd
Yeah,
have to be related to the distance from the nearest structure of building, and then also distance from fencing. So maybe people should have the opportunity to fence up their land if they want.
I mean, I think people do have the opportunity to fence their land if they want. I mean,
Okay.
if they have the financial opportunity, I guess, but it's not the most expensive thing.
Gotcha. Where did that go?
Um,
Yeah. Well, so
Wait,
how
I'm actually a little puzzled. Weren't you Americans supposed to be all about freedom and stuff, and like you're letting you're letting Finland and all those countries out freedom you in some
well,
sense?
no, I mean freedom is good in some senses, but also private property is good, or property in general is very important. So I think I agree with one of you guys mentioned that maybe certain land shouldn't be able to be purchased. I don't know how a government decides what land is going to be just the nature of that country. Like there's so many areas that it's nature where there's just
It's
wild
like a
animals.
reserve, or
Yeah. And so maybe there should be more land like that where people can go hiking. I mean, there's at least 200, maybe 300 hiking areas just in Oregon alone, the one state I live in. You can go any direction and go to a place and all day long hike endless amounts of space of trees and all this stuff. And I think that's very important. I think it's good to have state parks and national parks. And maybe some people that own large property that a lot of their property just is like a forest. Maybe they shouldn't be able to own some of that, and some of that should be part of nature that people walk in. But whatever is allowed to be sold, it seems complicated. Like maybe I lean towards if you can own property, then you should decide what happens in your property. But also, yeah, maybe you should have to build a fence around it if you want people to stay out of it and to know where that property line is.
yeah, I think that should be like the deciding factor.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So maybe I'll have Isaac check out this talk and see if he wants to adjust the law
Yeah, they
to.
have gone
Yeah.
again.
Viv, have you gone, or is it just your visual gone?
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Okay. Well, hopefully he'll show back up. I'm gonna. Oh, yeah, he's gone. I'm gonna put the next one up here. So minimum wage. Should there be a minimum wage? This is obviously a complicated question, but it's tricky. I feel bad if senators for this project are from other countries when we're going to use the U.S. for the basis of what laws should be in place. Do you know much about the U.S. and minimum wage and
No, not much.
okay, well, I guess fill me in on how that works in your country, in Bulgaria.
Uh, I mean, to be honest, I'm not. I'm probably not gonna tell you exactly how it works. It's got. I think it's divided by professions, but I'm not sure.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, yeah, I haven't been on minimum wage.
Okay, so if somebody, do you know if somebody went to get like what's considered like a low skill job? I don't even know if I like that term, but like if somebody what just turned 18 and went to get a job at like a fast food place. I don't know if you guys have McDonald's or something in Bulgaria.
There
Um,
are, yeah.
okay, so if somebody went to get a job at McDonald's, would they be able to pay them whatever they want, or is there a minimum wage?
No, there are minimum wages, but
Okay.
there, how the system works exactly, I'm not sure.
Okay. How do you think it should work? If there was an easy way to describe what you think.
It's like I think there should be to kind of avoid in a sense slave labor, but it's complicated. It should definitely you should definitely have some division in how skilled the labor is, so how much the minimum wage should be. And oh yeah, and the other thing is when the minimum wages are raised, then the other wages are raised here
I
by
see. Okay.
a certain percentage.
Gotcha.
And
Um,
yeah, that's for inflation, even though that I would say it hasn't been able to keep up with inflation lately because it's
gotcha.
been crazy.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is a topic I don't know exactly how to feel about it. In general, I think of myself as a libertarian. I like the idea of people being able to make their own choices. You create your own business. You can pay whatever you want, and people can decide they don't want to work for you if you pay too little. But also, aside from that, I think one of the most important things about a society is everybody in the society, unless they can leave the society, has to be able to live. Basically, if you have like in the U.S. you have 330 million people. If you only have like 5 million jobs but 330 million people, then then the government has to do something about that, because you don't, if you want a society to function right, you don't want everybody to um, revolt because they
Yeah,
can't eat or drink or whatever. So even though I lean more towards the best like basic foundation for a society being complete freedom to make any choices like that you want, even outrageous ones, like people can say like, oh, men can't come to this store, or women can't come to this store, or white people can't, or black people can't. People can decide outrageous things about their own company, and then if people don't like that, then they'll boycott it and not go. And then I guess I'm just a strong believer in laissez-faire capitalism, and I think the market will take care of itself. But in the event it doesn't, where with automation taking over a lot of jobs, and then people not being able to even survive, and they don't have shelter, water, food, I do think there has to be government intervention, and minimum wage seems to make sense for what little I
yeah.
know.
I'd say I'm on the fence of allowing absolutely everything to be, put on restaurants because that I guess it could allow for a lot of rightfully condemned fringe groups to gather in such places because, well, yeah, it's most people are gonna boycott it, but some people aren't. So let's
Mm.
say somebody like puts a swastika on their restaurant, and most
Mm.
people, reasonable people, are gonna boycott it. And if that's allowed, then some might gather exactly there because there's still, some small percentage of the population that's radicalized in this direction.
Yeah, that's true, and I don't know at what point it would need to be worried about. Like I think when you look at the South in the U.S. in say the 50s and the 60s, when everything was segregated. You had black people had to drink from different drinking fountains and go to different bathrooms and not allowed in certain restaurants. I think when something gets to a wild extreme like that, there might need to be government intervention. And I don't know exactly what that cutoff is, but I think when it's just individual little situations, for example, I don't know if this happened in Bulgaria, but this was a huge thing in the U.S. where there's a couple like bakeries that were religious. The people that owned them were religious and didn't want to bake cakes for like gay weddings and some things like that. And they would like the government would completely shut them down, make it illegal. They had to pay $100,000 fines, all this stuff. And even though I'm not a fan of those choices of theirs, because I think I'm not religious at all, and I am very pro people being whoever they want to be. So obviously, I want gay people to be able to get married and have cakes at their weddings. But I am definitely in favor of people being able to decide if they want to discriminate in that way, and then people could just avoid going there. But yes, I think you're right. At some point, if it became like extreme in a way where it was harming the way of life in a big way for an entire group, then maybe the government would need to step in.
Yeah, maybe there's a line that's just vague, or maybe it's like a coastline where it's constantly shifting. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so minimum wage. Okay, so do you think you would lean towards voting a yes for minimum wage just at the idea of there being one?
Yeah, I would vote for yes.
Gotcha. And then that's probably a yes for right to roam as well? As long as there's details making it specific?
Yeah, I guess for the right to roam, I think that it should be obvious where you should have the right to roam. It's like if somebody makes it obvious, okay, this is my property, then obviously don't go there. But for everything else, it's too much.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's go over the last one. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Vabe have just sent me a message saying that he had to run and do something. So looks like it's just me and you. And since it's late for you, we'll just do this last one and then.
It's not that late, but yeah, if
Okay.
that's all we got.
Yeah, well, and it was such short notice. I asked people yesterday about doing one today, so it was like less than 24-hour notice. And anyways,
Yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit about the prison system because I had some ideas there.
okay, well, let's do this. Let's do this last
Yeah,
one
let's
that's going
do
to be
this
voted on.
first.
Because I think I'm going to have Isaac, the guy that proposed these three laws. I'm going to have him watch our talk and see if he wants to adjust the laws at all based on our talks. But then, yeah, we can talk about the prison reform after that. So, yeah, the wealth inequality. Should there be a limit on wealth that can either be raised or removed depending on poverty levels?
Yeah, I don't. For this one, I'm gonna say no. There shouldn't be limit on wealth. Uh, I guess my biggest reason for it is just what was it called? Economies of scale. It's if you're having a business and you're able to scale it up, then you're going to be able to have much more efficient processes for that business. Like
Okay.
if you're making some kind of let's say heavy machine parts, steel parts, and uh, you need to automate the some kind of a process with them. It's not going to take. You cannot downscale the machine. You cannot downscale its size. You cannot downscale the price. So if you're able to grow, you'll be able to afford this machine that's going to be more efficient, and you're going to be able to have enough production for it to not stop working, for it to not be working like 10% of the time.
Gotcha. Yeah. This is definitely an area I don't know much about. What you just said makes perfect sense. I I wish I had a better understanding. From yeah. Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
an
It seems like if the more somebody's able to make, then the more they're able to do a lot of things. Not only like if you take something like Jeff Bezos and Amazon, the more he makes, the more he's able to hire people, and the more other people are going to be able to get jobs. The more he makes, the more he's. From my understanding, most of charities that are supported by billionaires. You know, the existence of billionaires and
like
big corporations.
oligarchs or yeah. No,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like as there, I believe as there become more millionaires and billionaires, there becomes less poverty in general. I think there used to be like in the 70s, it was like 40% of the world was in poverty. And then since then, in like 50 years, we're down to like less than 10%. I don't know the exact numbers. But
Yeah, I mean, it could be a correlation causation thing or
yeah.
both. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm saying this because I know quite a bit more about it. In
Yeah. Have you read up on it at all, or is it just something you personally know about just from?
I work in I program industrial robots.
Oh, okay. There we go. That makes sense. I just wasn't sure.
I
I'm
work
always
in
interested in
welding
checking
and
out
I've
books on different
programmed
topics.
CNC machines and stuff like that. Uh,
Gotcha.
so yeah, I'm much more familiar with that.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Um, yeah, yeah. It's a tricky topic. I guess it really just comes down to how it's done, because with a government intervention in the wrong way, because from my understanding, if you just have basic capitalism without any government intervention, it's practically impossible with competition. It's impossible to have a monopoly. But if you, with government intervention and subsidies and whatnot, that's what leads to having monopolies and people making too much money. So I guess there is a possible way it could play out where somebody making too much money could be a bad thing, especially if more money isn't created. And then if more money is created, then it devalues the money anyways.
Yeah,
So,
I think that the way this should be managed by governments, this type of growth should be through subsidies. It's like if you're too big, then you don't get the same subsidies as the little guy.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And it seems to be the other way around sometimes, especially with the meat industry, animal
But yeah,
agriculture. Um, but yeah,
it's
I need to do a lot of research on it.
it's actually the vegan food because it's for soy. It's not meat, even though it's animal feed.
Mm. Well, aren't there a lot of subsidies for the animal products themselves? Like when it comes to like the dairy industry and like dairy and school lunches and stuff like that, and then um,
Yeah,
like the low quality like meat products for like fast food chains and stuff like that. I was thinking a lot of
yeah, but
subsidies go that
the
direction.
the biggest expense in producing animal products is the feed.
Oh,
That's
really?
where the
Okay.
most water goes. That's it. That's the big expense. It's the animal feed,
Gotcha.
and it's you get so little of the calories as animal products from the feed because animals, they have metabolisms, they got beating hearts, breathing lungs, they're constantly burning calories, and they they don't store everything they eat.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think we can hop over to prison reform if you would like,
Yeah.
and for about like maybe 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
Uh, I wanna read something to you. One of the members of our group had voted a little late on this, but I sent him the law proposal about outlawing solitary confinement. I wanted to read to you what he wrote to me and see what your thoughts are. He said we should actually make solitary housing a standard option, with the application for the shared living areas for those who maintain peaceful and compliant behavior. Solitary should not be used as a punishment, but for keeping people who want to be alone or people who can't play nice with others away from others. Being in the shared areas should be the privilege, not solitary as a punishment. So,
Yeah, I don't think that's like what solitary actually is. I mean, it is a punishment, but I don't think it's like just living in your own cell. It's very constrained. It's designed to be bad.
okay. And if it's only used for people that are continuously being bad, like they have no capability essentially to be good. I'm guessing if you're in prison and then you're going to keep doing things like spitting on the guards or hitting other inmates or whatever few bad things you're even able to do in prison, and then this gets you to the solitary confinement. What are your thoughts of like how that kind of thing should change?
So I'm not sure what the effects of solitary confinement are on the person, but if it doesn't have a positive pacifying effect, then I don't see the reason for it. But
Hmm.
that I wanted to talk a little bit. I didn't have a specific law to propose about prisons, but I think that there should be quite a bit of reforms, I guess.
Okay.
So I I hold the I think that um the life sentence shouldn't be legal. I'm against the life sentence. I'm against any sentence that's over 15 years. And I'm not opposed to the death sentence. And my logic behind it is that prison should be some place to reform people, and if somebody is so hopeless, like I don't know, a serial killer, an absolute psychopath, somebody who we've decided that is so hopeless that there's no fixing them, there's no point in keeping them there for the rest of their life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't think we should see it as punishment, and if we're keeping them there for nothing, uh, if we're keeping them there for the rest of their life, then that's just punishment. And
Yeah.
the
Well,
other thing
so
is, when we're talking about rehab, um, I think Jeremy, yeah, he was also talking about rehab, but I think we have different ideas of what that should be. I think that one of the major flaws of prisons is that it allows people to essentially be bored most of the time. It's you're rotting away in a cell, and I don't think that should be the case. It should be a lot more physical exertion. It should be more like going to the army, except you don't have combat training or firearms training.
mm,
It's just exercise and cardio, and you're not gonna be bored.
yeah, yeah, and maybe more schooling too. I don't know
Yeah,
how much they do in the way of school, but if you're able to be outside exercising, yeah, I like the idea of the boot camp
I
type
mean,
thing.
I'm not
But then
saying they should be
also,
outside. I'm saying that they should be, I guess, too tired to be bored, too tired to think about how to run away or to start gangs.
yeah, no, oh, that's excellent too. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, doing that and then also the school element. I really don't know how much they put into that. It seems like at least what comes across in movies is a lot of people in prisons do work out a bunch. They have like a workout area and they have nothing else to do, so they do a lot of push-ups and they get really strong. And so that's
Yeah,
good. But adding more, like you're talking about with cardio, I think would be good. But then
yeah, but
make
that's the thing. They work out voluntarily. I think that they
mhm.
should be essentially like in the army. They should be compelled to.
Yeah, no, I like that. But yeah, and I also like the idea with the school because a lot of people, they don't want to go to school because they feel like it'd be boring and different things. But I would guess that most people in prison are less educated than most other people. And so if they're just like have to pick a topic and learn about it, I mean, honestly, somebody that's in prison, what did you say, 15 years would be maximum? So let's say somebody that was in prison even for 5 years, you could get a master's degree. Now I don't
Yeah.
know the exact way how funding would work and whatnot to have the best professors or whatever. It might have to be a thing where it's all like online, where there's lectures that are pre-recorded or something like that. But so it could be complicated. But just
Or you can
imagine
just have an AI teacher, maybe.
that'll be the future for
It's
sure. Yeah.
it's not even science fiction right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's still partially science fiction, but yeah, it's not fully. I'd say a physical AI teacher right now would be a little scary, but but anyways, yes, it's just so wild how much unwasted or how much wasted potential there is, as far as I I don't know if the type of people that are in prison usually are the type that are going to always form gangs within prison and whatnot. But I think they should at least give the option to find who isn't. Because if 50% of the people in prisons are going to start gangs, and then the other 50% have to kind of go along with that, and they do, but they would have loved to be educated and learn all these different things, maybe they should figure out, like ask each individual person, like say, hey, do you want to like get a degree here while you're in prison, or at least do some schooling for whatever amount of time you're in prison? And if they say yes, then okay, they're part of this prison that does this thing. But if somebody says like, no, I'm not going to waste my time with that, fuck that, and they're just very like, I'm going to do my time. I don't want to do anything I don't have to do. I don't care about my future. Put them in a different prison, and basically, I think the problem is there are people that would love to be reformed or to work towards it, and they probably feel obligated to go along with the bad prison system.
Mm.
Um,
So yeah, I think one of the reason again gangs are formed in prisons is because of the uh, I guess the environment in general is just how it's designed.
mhm.
And the other thing is, I don't think that you should be asking the prisoners because sometimes, a person to start wanting to get reformed, maybe they first need some tough love beforehand, and maybe that'll start a process.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So,
tough. I don't know the exact answers, but there's a lot of things that can be done. Really, just the vibe of it. Like I think it should be prettier colors. There should be more couches. You should have opportunity that if your family wants to come visit you as often as possible, somebody in prison should be able to go into a room that has like a couch and a TV, and their kids and their wife or husband or their parents, people can just come visit them and hang out, as long as they are removed from being able to, because I agree with you. I don't think punishment is the purpose. Rehabilitation is part of the purpose. Deterrence is part of the purpose, but also removal from committing the acts is part of the purpose. So if somebody's just constantly they rob this place and they rob that place and they rob this place, even though you shouldn't get life in jail, you shouldn't even get 15 years in jail for that. If you are thought of as the person that's going to go rob another place, and every time you do it, you go to jail for a little bit, and it doesn't stop you the next time, you might have to go to jail for 2, 3, 4 years. And as long as you're removed from being able to do this act that you keep doing that is illegal, you shouldn't have to feel sad. So if you're removed from it, if the law enforcement removed you and put you in this place, if you have kids that want to come and visit you every day, they should be able to like. They're not going to steal from their kids. They're not going to be able to leave the building. They should be able to like have the best lives they can have, as long as it's not costing the taxpayers a crazy amount of money or something. The best lives they can have, instead of a place designed to make you miserable as a punishment.
Yeah. So on the part where their families should be able to visit them whenever they want, I think that's a good idea. Definitely. But I still don't see why you would I guess invest in luxuries such as TVs and couches in the prison. Like, why do you need that?
Well, yeah, I guess, money would have to be put in the best places. So if you have issues that need to be taken care of that are more important than that, like taking care of the homeless or whatever, then you wouldn't just put wild extra money. I guess I just,
Yeah,
I think you can have priorities, things that can come first. Like I think you're right. The distraction of exercise
no,
could come first.
I'm asking why should luxuries being put in prisons come at all? Like, what is the reason behind them?
Oh, I see. Well, I don't think they should show up in a sense where it's like somebody's being rewarded for doing something bad. I guess my initial thought is just that um, I don't like the idea of prison being thought of as a punishment at all. So it just being a yeah.
Yeah,
I don't.
well, when I say that, I think that we shouldn't be doing things in prison just for the sake of punishment. We
Mhm.
should be looking at what's actually going to, I guess, fix people there.
No, that's a good point. If having like TVs and couches in
Like,
prison is going to make people go, "Oh, I like being here, so when I get out, I'm going to commit a crime." Of course, you'd have to change that up and see what works. I just yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to ponder that one some more. But I do want to ask you about the thing you were saying about the life sentence or the 15 years. Do you think that there is a intentional murder that should lead to 15 years or less? Like if
hmm,
somebody wants to
like
kill somebody
with
premeditated.
intentional murder, I'm not like. Of course, they're examined on a case by case basis, but uh, yeah, and with murder, maybe even a death sentence.
Okay. I guess that's the thing. So I agree with you that anything that you would say should be 15 years or less and the focus should be reformed. I'm going to likely agree with you on most of that stuff. But anything where you say there shouldn't be a life sentence or more than 15 years, and for those people there should be a death sentence, why are you against the idea
I
of.
don't think that we should be. I guess the people that are gonna get very high prison sentences, I guess they should just come back closer to the 15 years, and on the very fringe cases where they're just horrible and you can see that you can't like do anything about these people. It's I guess even the most humane thing to do.
I see. Is it for the humane reason itself? Is that why you
It's
want to
not
do it?
it's not just for the humane reason, but it's like it beats. It's certainly better than a life sentence. Like I would,
Hmm. What are
I,
your thoughts on
for
giving
me,
them the
for
option?
me personally, a life sentence in a boring ass prison is the worst sentence.
Yeah, no,
Like
I
15
agree.
minutes
Like
to death sentence.
I might rather be dead than be in prison for life.
Mm.
Um, But I just wonder if they should have the option. If somebody wants to continue living, they're fine with being in jail for life. Their family members can visit and all these different things. I just feel like if we have the capability of doing it. Now, if we don't have the capability, if people can break into prisons and sneak people out, or people can break themselves out of prisons, then yes, the most dangerous people, we don't want to risk them. We want to protect, a society should protect, a government should protect its society, its citizens. And so if we can't keep them housed, then we don't want to take that risk. But if we can, I think there's three reasons I have. So one is we don't always get it right. There's so many cases that happen here and there, even though it's kind of rare, about people getting executed, and then it turns out they were innocent. So that's something that doing away with the death penalty can do away with those innocent people being killed. Now, a second thing is, I feel like we don't want, like a government's purpose is to protect us, to protect us from harm. I mostly view a government's purpose pretty much only being for that, with a few other little details, but to protect us from harm. So I like the idea of a government not being able to harm, aside from in the process. So if somebody does something illegal and then they're being arrested, if they fight back, obviously the police officers have to do whatever they need to do to detain the person. And so there might be a little violence there, but it's like a self-defense type violence. But once they are detained, the idea of keeping them from doing a thing, having this deterrent, a handful of different reasons that they are in a jail or prison, makes sense within the government protecting the citizens. But as soon as the government goes to the level of executing a citizen, I feel like that gets in the way of what I view as the purpose of government, is to protect, but not to, I don't believe in God, but let's say play God, to decide when somebody's life should end, unless that's needed for self-defense. If an officer shoots somebody that has a gun that's going to kill somebody, that's in self-defense. If a government and a prison, law enforcement, cannot contain people in their prisons and people keep escaping, then you might need to execute a serial killer, because if you don't, they're going to get out and kill somebody. So that's like self-defense in advance. But once you have them in there, if you know you can keep them in there for life, and let's say hypothetically you know that it's not going to cost a lot of money, it's not going to matter, they're just there and they want to keep living and read books or something, at that point, then the government is making this choice that's so different from any other choice we might want them to make, which is they aren't protecting every citizen. They're choosing a citizen to end the life of.
So
Sorry for the ramble.
Yeah, okay. You said it's not gonna cost a lot of money, but they have to eat. They have expenses.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, I'm just saying, like, looking at this in a hypothetical, imagining it, like, just to see. I like to take moral topics and stretch them to their limits. Like, can we find a case where this is perfectly morally acceptable? And then also, can we find one where it's not at all? And so if we look at the one where serial killers keep being arrested and then escaping and murdering other people, then I think it's clearly obvious that at that extreme, where the prison is so bad at containing them, then executing them is the most moral thing to do. Not executing them would be immoral. Okay, so that's at one extreme. But if you look at the other extreme, I just want to, well, hold on real quick. I just want to say, if you look at a hypothetical where a society has all the resources in the world, endless money, endless food, everything's perfect, some futuristic, nobody needs money anymore, AI and automation has made everything living as perfect, nobody has to lift a finger to make this person be in prison for life, cannot escape. We can give them luxuries or not, who cares? They will not be able to harm another person ever again. is it immoral to kill them? And I think so.
I don't know. I think it depends on what they did and who they are. Like
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
if they're like a serial killer or a serial child molester,
Hmm. Um.
it's there is a yeah. It maybe mostly my feelings playing here, but I feel like that there should be this option for such crimes.
Okay. Well, let
And
me ask
I
you.
was, I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask. Okay, maybe they keep on doing something repetitively, and we don't sentence them to death, but we sentence them in like for like 15 years. And I just thought, like, should there be a limit to how much you can spend in prison before you're sentenced to death? Let's say like a 45-year maximum.
Yeah. w-
So
Yeah,
you can
I
get
don't know the answer to this, but one thing I think would be important, whether we're talking about somebody having a year in jail or life in jail, I think there should be better ways to make prisoners be able to work. Now, in some cases, I don't know about in Bulgaria, but here, people that are not like big time criminals, but people that are in jail will do like landscaping for the city's properties. Like you'll see work crews where they're inmates, and there's a guard, and like 10 people are just like landscaping something for the city, and then they go back or whatever. So that's one example. But also within the prisons, hell, you could start. You could have Amazon have a factory in prisons where the prisoners are like packaging up stuff and putting the labels on it and putting tape on it. And then also there was this in Arizona in the U.S. For a while, and I don't know if they still do it. They had prisoners growing their own food, so they had sections of gardening, and they'd grow their own
Yeah, I
food.
know of one prison here in Bulgaria that's on island Belene, where they're growing their own food, and they actually have a dairy farm on the prison. So it's like a double
Interesting.
prison for the cows and for the prison.
Yeah. Hopefully they were bad
Except one
cows.
of the prisoners, a portion of the prisoners are innocent
Mm.
and probably have a death sentence.
I just want to point out. So Freedom Ring said to what we were talking about earlier, that it should be limited. The right to roam, coastal beaches should always have a right to roam, and I completely agree with that. I've heard of some cases where there'll be privately owned beach areas, and I think anywhere there's sand on the coast should not be able to be owned by somebody in a way where you can't walk on it. Okay, but real quick,
Yeah, but
also,
why would forests be different from that?
well,
Like,
it's
not everybody lives on the coast, but
that's
everybody
true.
wants to, go walk somewhere.
I think part of it comes down to the. I think the main issue is if you are able to defend yourself on your own property, like if you feel like somebody's going to come like break into your house and you can use a gun and shoot them to defend yourself, then the worry would be if somebody's on your property and they're not trying to do anything wrong, but you think they are, or maybe they have some kind of a pole or something that you think is a gun, and they're in like a foresty area of your property, then somebody, my concern I would see is I'd be worried that the people that are just wanting to go on walks would be killed, and maybe killed with a seemingly good reason. Where something like a beach is just, it can be so obvious. It can just be anything that is a beach you don't own. You can't kick people off your beach. But there are definitely many areas of land with fences and partial fences and even no fences where your backyard is like a forest. And so nobody's backyard is like a beach if every beach is accepted to be walked on. But then with forest area, there's so many places you can go hiking. But even with the right to roam, there's so many forest areas. Like when it says 500 feet or 150 meters from a house, there's going to be that 150 meters is going to be full of forest. But you're going to have to know, like, okay, well, how far is it from the house? So does that make sense? That I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen. It just becomes more complicated because if you know you can be on a beach, you can just know you can be on the beach. But if you think you're allowed to roam and hike and camp in a foresty area and you're 100 meters from the house, but you're supposed to be 150 meters, then you're technically doing something illegal. You're crossed onto somebody's property in a way you're not supposed to. And it's just complicated. So I don't know exactly how the law should be written.
So
It's just,
what if you are prohibited from killing people on your property?
well, that'd be bad.
Hmm.
Only,
Hold
well,
on,
I
hold
don't.
on. You're on the fence of having a death sentence for serial killers and pedophiles, but you think it would be bad for people to not be able to kill people just because they're crossing through a certain land that they have regarded as their property. I think that's a
Yeah,
bit of
no,
a
I,
double standard.
I get why you would feel that way. Well, so I think it's intentional killings with no reason, with no like self defense. I don't think should be allowed, and so we have to have some kind of an arbitrary line of a cutoff of how we describe what a self-defense killing is. And so if we allow people to have property and we don't want them to let people break onto their property. Now, I don't know if anybody should be able to just shoot a person because they're on their property. I do think if somebody is trying to break into your house, you should be able to shoot them. If they break a window, and if it's somebody you don't know, they come to your house, they break a window, they're trying to get in, they try to bust the door down. I think you should be able to shoot them when it comes to the property of the house that you're on. If they're just in your property, it's complicated. If somebody's just standing 20 feet from your house and they're just standing there, I don't think you should be able to shoot them. But what if you're there and you got a couple of little kids there and and the nearest police station is very far away and there's like 20 people on your property and they look like they're up to no good, but they haven't tried to break in yet. Like, I really don't know. And what if they have guns? If somebody's on your property with a gun, now there could be 20 people with guns near your house on your property, and they could just be there because they think they have the right to roam there and they're going to go out hunting or something. But they could be there because they're bad guys doing bad things. I don't know what the cutoff is, but I think it's different
if
than
we're talking about a situation where you're outnumbered. I don't think it's even a good idea to draw your weapon like that, because you're gonna shoot somebody and then you're gonna get how do you call it, Swiss cheesed.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
situation.
maybe. Okay, so this is what I would say. In a vacuum where I had a specific case where I knew a few things but not everything, if I magically knew 20 people with guns in my front yard wanted to come into my house, break into my house, and I didn't know for sure if they'd kill me or not, but they wanted to break in, they at least wanted to steal some stuff, and it was a 50-50 shot. Like, maybe they want to kill me, maybe they don't. And I had like a semi-automatic or something. Like, I don't know much about guns, and I'm not good at shooting them or anything like that. But if I had like an AR-15 or something, if I knew, if I could magically know in this hypothetical scenario that they are up to no good, they're not just people roaming or whatever, even though it might be smartest to not shoot and to see if they can just steal stuff and leave, if I knew they were up to no good and my kids were in the house and they could possibly be harmed, I would definitely, I wouldn't try to take them out with a knife. I would say, take whatever you want, please leave us alone. But if I had something where I thought I could take out all 20 of them, of course I would shoot them.
So the thing is, I think that on private property and So on private property, the laws that are about self-defense that apply that are not on your private property should also apply there. It's like, why should it be easier for you to kill people there?
Well, that it
It,
depends on if there's a system within your society. If your society is designed in a way where everybody knows if you break into somebody's house, they might kill you. Then you take that risk on your own because you know what you're doing. Having that same risk out at the mall or something isn't the same. Depending on if you know what the society calls for. For example, if you know that it's illegal to just randomly shoot a gun into the air in public. If I just walk in downtown, there's people all around, and I point a gun up in the air and shoot, there might not be a harm in that, assuming there's no birds or planes above me. But if a police officer was there, like I took this risk of I might get shot or tackled or whatever, and that's just something you're aware of within the society. If you live in a society where it's perfectly fine to be on people's property and to be 2 feet from their house and just dance around and do whatever you want or whatever, then that's just what you're aware of with your
yeah,
society.
I guess that would also, like, there would be an interference there with gun prohibition laws because it's it feels a little alien for me to talk like this because when you walk here in Bulgaria, you're not usually afraid that someone might shoot you. You know, people
Hmm.
aren't as
Well,
I
I don't
guess
feel that way here
liberal with
either.
their guns as in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that there is more of a gun issue in the U.S. than a lot of places. It's definitely
Yeah,
not the worst. It's not the worst per capita. There's definitely, I think most of the worst countries are like nearest to the equator. You got a lot of like
like
the north.
Nigeria or
I think
I'm
like
not sure.
Colombia and like the Panama area, Brazil. I believe northern northern section of Africa. For some reason, most crime takes place around the equator. I don't know if it's just the heat gets to people or what. I've looked into it a little bit, but I haven't really found anything too specific on why that is. But there seems to be an equator element to it. But let's see, Venezuela. There's a few places that just
Mhm.
are worse than the U.S. But yes, the U.S. There seems to be some issues, but it's not as simple. Like I've never thought I would like get shot in public. I've never been worried about my kids going to school or anything, just because of the very rare but very publicized school shootings and whatnot.
Yeah,
Um,
I've just communicated with some Americans who are like, "Oh, but I won't be able to have all access to guns because what if the other guy has a gun?" And it's like the bad guys are always gonna get the guns.
yeah, like
You know, like
I
you really
think
have to worry about this that much.
when philosophizing about it, it makes sense to have this want of the freedom to have protection in the way of a gun, and just breaking down like putting yourself in a scenario what you'd want. But I don't personally own a gun. I'm just talking about a situation where, in that situation where there's 20 guys with guns inside at my front yard, I would wish I had a gun if I didn't. Um, but I do got to hop off here in a sec. I wanted to backtrack to the
Like an 8 barrel minigun or something.
I don't know much about guns at
Like
all, but I
I think it's like 50 rounds per second. It should,
oh
yeah.
well, I don't think that automatic guns should be legal. I think a bullet should come out only at the pull of a trigger. And I don't think the gun should be able to be modified to change that either, like bump stocks. But it's not something I thought about too thoroughly. But
Do you
anyways,
think there should be prohibited bullets?
types of
No,
bullets,
yeah, types of bullets.
I haven't looked into it too much. I know that there are. I know there are different kinds, but yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know too much about it. I feel like I had an important question for you about the death penalty thing, and I forgot what it was.
Mm.
Um, um, I was going to ask you. This is a thing that often comes up with philosophical conversations. If there was somebody that the worst thing somebody could do, let's say you were talking about the molester situation. Let's say somebody like molested, like, I don't know, 200 kids or something, and they were about to be executed. Okay. They are going to be executed no matter what. There's no way around it. They're about to be executed. You could press a button where the last 5 minutes of their life they get nothing but pure pleasure, or you can not press that button at all and they'll just have 5 minutes of their life like normal, and then they'll be executed. Um, do you desire the idea of somebody having pleasure, especially if it's not going to have a negative effect on, like, they're not going to be able to do anything ever again. They're not going to go out and do a bad act. They're not that it would matter, but I don't think they can link like their acts to being rewarded or anything. It's just a matter of knowing what pleasure is like and knowing what suffering is like. And like in general, if there's no other outcome, would you want to give anybody, even the worst people, pleasure?
Mm. Uh, I guess so. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, I would press the button. But on that, when you said that, I thought of something.
Hmm.
Uh, there was this study. It's just vaguely in my mind. There were cancer patients that were going to die, and they were given various doses of psychedelic mushrooms, like magic mushrooms,
Hmm.
and it like very it decreased their the experience decreased their fear of death.
Oh,
So do you think that there should be such an option for like death row
oh,
inmates?
definitely. Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah. I would say anything that would decrease someone's fear, like, because that's the thing. Like, I don't think I ever like the idea of punishment that isn't beneficial. So when people are raising kids, they might have to give a kid a punishment so they can learn from it. So they'll like I have like chores for my kids, and I have a 14-year-old that's supposed to take the garbage out by a certain time every day, and so it's a way to try to instill some responsibility into him. And if he ever doesn't do it, then it'll be like, oh, okay, because you didn't do it, now you have to wash a load of dishes or something. But he only gets that punishment to remind him that if he doesn't do it, he'll get that punishment or whatever. So I think there are ways where an act of punishment could be like a building block. But aside from that, I don't believe in punishment whatsoever. I only think prison should be for keeping somebody from doing an act, being a deterrence for other people for future acts, and then also being a place for reform and all these different things. And so when it comes to this idea of especially people that are no matter what going to die, any amount of pleasure, I would give Hitler the greatest ecstasy of pleasure for his last 5 minutes life.
That
I really,
sounded
I really don't care like that. Like I think pleasure is good. I think suffering is bad. If I could remove somebody's suffering or give somebody's pleasure and it doesn't cause a negative thing. Now, if me giving Hitler this pleasure and he wasn't going to die and he felt like he got that pleasure because it's a reward because he's a good person and he believes in karma or something, I wouldn't give it to him with that information. But right now, if I could press a button and then people in like prison would just get pleasure, I would do it as long as I knew that that pleasure wouldn't make them feel like, oh, I'm going to connect this with being in prison, so I want to be in prison. So if somebody's going to be executed and you can give them magic mushrooms, or you can just press a button and have them have pleasure, or you can let them get very drunk or whatever to distract them from their injection of death coming up. Yes, of course.
Hmm. I mean, I think the injection of death part of it is like you're injected with a tranquilizer that makes you unconscious. Then you're injected with the second thing that
Hmm.
stops your heart, and the third thing that just does something else, and it's done. It's like a
Yeah. And
three.
adding the psychedelic before that, making you not stressed about the first injection, the numbing
Yeah,
injection, you might have the stress of getting strapped to a table and knowing what's about to happen or whatever. Giving them the option of like psychedelics or whatever. Hell yeah. I think
yeah,
so. Do you
and
think so?
I would say yeah, they should also be like they should be researched. They should be illegal for I guess patients that are going to die. But it's also scary because uh, I don't know. It just feels scary because I've done psychedelics and I just can't imagine doing them in a state where I'm literally about to die. That's yeah, it's it's a whole other thing. So I don't know what these people have experienced, but it's intimidating to say the least to take a psychedelic in that state.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know too much about that kind of thing. But yeah, whatever's going to
It's,
make people feel
it's
better.
like it's not like alcohol where it just most of the time it just makes you happy. It amplifies your emotions. So if you have really a lot of anxiety, you can get just paranoia levels of anxiety,
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Gotcha, gotcha. But hey, I gotta hop off here. But I just saw a text from my wife. She must have heard us talking from out in the other room before we started going live. And the island I was trying to come up with was Santorini. That's the island in Greece. San,
Santorini, okay.
Santorini. So I wasn't sure if you knew of that one, but I guess it's
No, I
supposed to be
didn't know that
nice.
one.
Yeah.
Okay,
But maybe if I go to Greece, I'll come visit you. How far
okay.
how far away are you? So you said the size of Bulgaria is. Did you say half the size of Oregon?
No, it's probably like 30 to 50% smaller.
Okay. And then so if you went from where let's say you were going to travel from where you are to like somewhere like Athens, how long would that take you to drive there?
I have to drive.
Yeah.
Uh, let me just look it up on the map. Where's Athens? Uh, oh wait, that's actually quite far away. Maybe
Okay, is that on the other side
6,
of
12,
Greece?
like 16, 20 hours. Yeah, maybe 20 hours. I mean, just looking at the distance, I'm not looking at roads and stuff.
Gotcha,
Okay.
gotcha. Well, anyways, yeah. If I'm ever in the area, if I ever come to Bulgaria, I'll let you know.
Okay.
But yeah, awesome. It was a good talk, and maybe I'll see you next weekend.
All right.
All
Bye.
right, take care.